Thank you. Hey, Veena, thank you so much for taking your time for this interview.
Yes, no problem. Thanks for asking me.
So, Veena, as you know, this is all about change management, and I know you are a right person to interview because you come with a lot of enriched experience on change management. So, let's get started. My first question for you is, what symptoms of resistance to change have you experienced?
Um, what is very common for me and what I've experienced is a lack of trust. Also, individuals choosing to ignore the change and not buying into the change.
Wow, okay. That sounds a very strong example of resistance. Okay. So, have you experienced both active and passive form of resistance? And by active, I mean that somebody who is very upfront with the resistance and somebody just is non-vocal but not buying and signing for this change, which whatever is the change is for the
Mhm.
organization. So, what is your
Yes.
experience with active and passive resistance?
Yeah, I've experienced both where they are being critical of the change, are failing to implement the change that is put before them, also by holding out support and withholding information, and also taking it personal. So, a lot of people are very tied to current practices or their position. So when they feel threatened, they take it personal, and then they are even more vocal and critical about the change, and also being selective of what they will change and what they will go along with, and then hiding information. So not being upfront with everything when it comes to change.
Wow, and I heard you saying threatened. So, do you think the this emotion gets activated because the change is challenging their status quo or their comfort zone?
Yes, I think it's mostly their comfort zone. I mean, them being comfortable, but also because I feel like sometimes people think when you're doing change that it in a sense will eliminate them in that current position. So I think this causes the resistance that happens.
So it's a mix of emotion of being in a comfort zone, or it's a fear of get becoming obsolete.
Exactly.
Okay, so it's a mix of both emotions
Hmm.
where they are acting like differently for the change. So,
Exactly.
so Veena, did you ever ever expressed resistance to organizational change as a recipient of change? So something need to be come to you as a change, and have you ever experienced your own resistance for change?
Because the organization that I currently work for is, I mean, from the beginning, we've always been aware that change is not, it seems day to day at times, but it's just something that's going to happen. So I've always been open to explore change, and always have went along with it because I just felt like it was a part of um, me agreeing to work for this organization, is being able to be flexible and to be able to be accepting of change when it happens.
Do you want to elaborate with some example, which would you like to share? Some changes which you accepted gladly.
I know when we were in the process of making change in regards to just job responsibility within the department that I'm in, um, because again, I'm not personally tied to the duties and responsibilities. I was able to be open when I knew it personally affected me. I was able to be open with the change of the duties that were put upon us. So some things were taken and I was relieved of some responsibilities, but then there were some things that were added on that maybe I would have initially thought was something that maybe HR or human resource department should handle, but that was put on me as a responsibility. So what I figured I needed to do is just, educate myself on the process to make sure that I could just implement the change in a more secure or just in a more confident manner.
Mm-hmm. Got it. So that's really, it's a good skill to being open for accepting the change and, you know, going with the needs, the however that needs evolve. You have to be adaptable and flexible enough to adopt. That's the, that's a very good quality for any manager to have. And thank you for sharing that.
Mhm.
So, Vina, did you ever had a situation where you had the resistance for change, and you are the one who were responsible to implement that?
Yes, I have had that experience where people, well, individuals that I worked with would deliberately try to procrastinate with the actions. Getting direction from our director to implement a change, then having a meeting to discuss how that change would be implemented, and for the individuals to state that, for them, they couldn't see how it worked, they would need more time. So what they did is deliberately try to procrastinate with that. So what I had to do is just like set timelines in regards to when the change would happen and set out a format in order to um, go ahead and move forward with the change based on the direction that we received.
So, setting up timeline and setting up expectation helped you. Uh, but I did hear you mentioning support from your director. So,
Yes.
do you think that coming up from the upper management executive level, is it easy for you to handle the change, or it is easy for you to convince people to accept the change?
Well, it's easy for me to, for me, it's not a problem, but it's easy for me to have that as in a sense, an enforcement tool to use with others in regards to that it's not an option, that is something that's going to happen. And then I have that backing as, okay, we have to follow the direction of our director in order to implement this change.
Okay, okay,
So it's used as a reinforcement.
wow. And in your views, what do you see is the common resistance, and what are the reasons? What are the most common resistance you face in your role?
I think the most common ones I see is hiding information, also constantly criticizing and trying to get others on board based on their verbal criticizing of change. And with with change, say they'll change, but never support in that procrastinating of the responsibilities that they have. And also just waiting for change to fail, always kind of sitting in the back waiting so that they can have the opportunity to say, I told you so. So these are things that I see, how people try to deliberately try to not get on board with change.
And that's few of them you mentioned. It's a quite a big one, right? Hiding information so people can rely on somebody to implement the change, and that information goes missing, or you are just saying that, okay, I'm with you, but not signing up, not fully signing in for it.
Hmm. And
Yeah.
then they use tools like when I say hiding information, maybe a certain department has access to something.
Mm-hmm.
Another department might need that in order to implement the change, but they don't share. And then they'll use the excuse where they say it was just for that information was just for their department, when we are one organization, is not specifically for one department. So that's a way that they've chosen to kind of justify hiding information.
So, do you, in those situations, do you see it's a what kind of a gap you say? It's an expectation gap, communication gap, or procedure, functional gap, or tactical, strategic, tactical gaps, which
The
is
the
playing
trap,
role.
yeah, the tactical and the communication gaps. Those are hot. Those are the ones that I see them try to use often.
And they want to, utilize those as their your excuses.
Excuse. Mm-hmm.
Okay,
Exactly.
got it. So, as a manager, what are the which resistance? There could be a various reason for resistance of to change, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, but which one is the most difficult one?
Um, the most difficult one I feel is, it's hard to pinpoint one, but maybe hiding the information and holding back support.
Mm-hmm.
Those could be maybe the most difficult.
Mm-hmm.
Going to implement the change, that's probably actually thinking the most difficult one, because if you fail to implement, then that holds up the whole process for a whole organization. One thing one person can do can hinder or not support where we're going as an organization.
Mm-hmm. And also, for me, as a when I think of organization from change management perspective, what is happening is when people are saying it that I'm with you, but they kind of are passively enjoying and not, withdrawing their support indirectly to
Mm-hmm.
let the process fail or let the situation become more critical. I
Mm-hmm.
think for me that's the most difficult one to handle because it's very difficult to pinpoint who is openly saying that I'm with you, but on the back they are not supporting you. So
Exactly.
the pseudo status gives me a more chills than anything else.
Right. Because you don't know what they're doing in the background. I'm with you, but then maybe when they're dealing with their staff, they're not showing that support. So you don't see it in action. It's not in action, it's just in words. So it's empty words.
Hmm. Absolutely. So, Vina, now we have talked about you as handling a team and managing programs and all. Now, did you ever have to face a situation where you felt a resistance from the executive team on certain issues or project or any future changes which your organization might need to go through? Or did you ever had those situations where you felt that executive team or leadership team need to be more open or vocal or more acceptance?
Yes, I have experienced that where we get our direction from a federal level, and executive management has decided not to go that way. But the information that we receive is accessible to everyone in the organization, so they see it. They see that we're going one direction. We're saying or doing one thing, and then what it does is it causes an amount of confusion, and it causes an amount of confusion because there's no communication about it, because the executive management team has decided not to make that change. that they haven't had a conversation or a dialogue about it. So what I see is needed in what was needed in that situation is to have open dialogue with the organization in regards to even to say, hey, this is the stance or the decision that we have made as the executive team, just so that it reinforces um, that what they see. So if they see it, they could be like, okay, yeah, at least I know that we're not going in this direction and we're going this way and the reason why. And you get buy-in from that. But open dialogue is very important in order to get that done.
So, if I understood correctly, you're saying that since your organization get a one set of information from a federal level, and but since your leadership team is not going in the same direction what federal information is telling, it creates a confusion between the within the staff members, so they don't know which one to follow because there is
Exactly.
no open communication, no messaging that why we are not going that route.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly.
And that makes sense, right? And you are suggesting that having an open dialogue can take care of that issue.
Exactly. And when you don't have those open dialogues, what happens is the trust in the organization is, it's just chipped at because since there's no conversation about it, the staff feels like they have been shut out or keeping in the they've been kept in the dark about something.
And definitely, that's not a good way to, run the organization when you are trying to be a be in a change space, right?
Right.
Implementing new things, of course, and that's challenging for sure.
Yes.
And the biggest challenge in the change, what do you see as the biggest challenge in the change management area or implementing any new change, a new procedure? What could be the biggest hurdle you see?
Well, I think the biggest thing is to have leaders that we have to lead change by it has to be led by management. You have to lead by example. And then you have to also acknowledge the connection that they have with the existing processes or practice or system. So in a sense, you have to be able to give the staff time to mourn the existing processes in order to be able to be more accepting of the new, and then just highlighting the advantages of the new system and how getting the buy-in from them in regards to what their role is in that. When you have a personal connection to something, you're more in line to kind of adjust with the change, and then just having open dialogue, open communication, and then reinforcing what the change is and being consistent.
So you think that the resistance to change comes because many times the communication is lacking, the right communication is lacking, and
Mhm.
also it's not well explained what is changing and how it will impact their day-to-day work when it comes to talking to your staff and workforce.
Yes, exactly. You have to be able to see yourself and see the um the part that you play in it. And when you see that and you don't look at it truly as a true big picture, but you see yourself in it, then you're able to you know, come be more on board with it and be more accepting. You don't have to agree with it, but I know the part that I'm playing in it, and I also see the advantages of the change. Then I think you would get a better response from your team.
Yeah, and once you understand the big picture, sometime the resistance fades then and there, right? Because now you
Mhm.
know that where you are, how it looks like, and how it's gonna look like in future, and what's changing, right? The change is difficult for many people, so
Mhm.
it becomes our responsibility to explain it to a way that helps them to understand and takes away those anxiety and the fear of unknown and acting acting in a silo that I have to be alone to deal with it, creating that system where everybody can voice their concerns and raise their questions and be
Mhm.
heard. So it could be yeah, and I think that is very important in change management process. So
Mhm.
anything else you want to add, Vina?
I think you hit it. That's it. Thank you for being able to articulate what I'm saying.
Thank you so much, and I appreciate your time. And
Thank you.
I thank you for all your support.
No problem. Have a good one.
Thank you. So,